Hello, everyone, and welcome to Guardicore's 20-Minute Tuesdays. We are so pleased that you chose to spend your time with us today. We'll make sure it's worth your while. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and all attendees are in listen-only mode. But if you have a question, please pop it into the chat, and we'll answer it at the end. With that being said, I'll turn it over to Garrett Weber, our VP of Systems Engineering. Take it away, Garrett.
Hey everyone, I'm Garrett Weber, the Vice President of Solutions Engineering for Guardicore. Thanks for joining this edition of our 20-Minute Tuesdays, where we give you a short demonstration on Guardicore Centra's ability to address specific use cases and security concerns. Today's topic is around achieving compliance quickly, easily, and effectively, focusing on PCI and SWIFT compliance in particular. Now, most people are familiar with PCI compliance and the idea that if you process, transmit, or store credit card data, you are responsible for segmenting and isolating that information based on the PCI DSS standards. People may be less familiar with SWIFT, but SWIFT is a global provider of financial messaging services and is used by banks to send secure messages and orchestrate financial transactions, such as wire transfers. Both of these regulations require an organization to segment and isolate their SWIFT and PCI environment and applications from the rest of the IT network. So what we're going to talk about is how Guardicore really makes this process simple. And we're going to focus on the steps to actually achieving compliance by visualizing and understanding your applications, applying policies, and then also detecting and responding to incidents after those policies are applied. So first, a story, a tale of two banks. Bank number one had a project to segment their SWIFT application using VLANs and their next generation firewalls. The project total took them 9 months and involved re-architecting the network to create new segments and VLANs. It required team members to manually map application dependencies into spreadsheets by using tools like NetFlow and Wireshark, and a scheduled downtime where they had to re-IP the workloads to actually move them into those new VLANs and into those new segments. There was a lot of data collection, planning, and execution that went into this, only for that first attempt to move the SWIFT application into its new segment to fail, because the rule set that was applied to the firewall was incorrect in the end. They had to roll back that cutover and actually make a second attempt 2 weeks later after they made some changes to the rule set and did more additional application dependency mapping. Now let's take bank number two. Bank number two is a Guardicore customer. They had a similar project to segment their SWIFT application, and they completed this project in just 2 weeks. The Guardicore approach doesn't require any of the re-architecting of the network or the scheduled downtime. And since we were able to provide the necessary application dependency mapping information, that really allowed the bank to see what was happening within their network, and they were quickly able to move from visualizing those traffic flows to enforcing security policies, effectively isolating the SWIFT application and meeting the compliance requirements. That's really the power of what we're going to talk about today with Guardicore's software-based approach to performing segmentation in the network. We can help understand those dependencies and implement security policies in any environment, on-premise or cloud, without making any changes to the network. So let's take a few minutes and actually jump into the demo at this point and show you how this works. Okay, so welcome to the Guardicore Centra security platform. This is where we visualize the application flows in these maps using our tool called Reveal. And then we're going to take this data and we're going to actually turn it into security policy. And then after that, we'll look at how we can detect and respond to security incidents that are generated based on violations to the policy that we put in place. When I'm looking at a Reveal map, I can see here, I effectively have everything organized by the environment that my workloads are a part of. And if I want to look into my production environment and understand the applications, such as my e-commerce application that maybe need to be PCI or SWIFT compliant, I can first see the dependencies of that application. I can see connections to our document management system and the customer relationship management tools. I can understand what core services the e-com application connects to for DNS and authentication and NTP, vulnerability management, all of those tools that will access the e-com application that I need to make sure it can still access that application after it's segmented. But to do that, I need the visibility data to really do the application dependency mapping. You can drill all the way down and see the different tiers of the application. And you can understand that when the web servers connect into those database servers, they're connecting individually to the database servers and all the way down to the Mongo application, the actual process running on the database server. This context gives you the ability to make good, informed decisions with your security policies and takes out of the guesswork that is usually required when we try to manually map application dependencies. If I didn't know what this application was, I can easily see over here on the right-hand side, it's the Mongo application. It's running out of this path. This is the user that executed it, whether it's a service account, a system account, or a corporate domain user account. You can understand who's running these applications as well. You can see the command line to understand what command actually ran to execute the application. And we ultimately take this hash and compare it to our threat feed in order to let you know if this is a piece of malware running within the environment. So during this discovery and dependency mapping phase, we're also identifying known malicious applications that may be running in the environment so we can mitigate those before we actually put policy in place. This map data is stored for you historically. So if you want to look back and see how the e-commerce application communicated over the last 30 days, I can easily change my time frame to look at that. I can also filter these maps to show me specifically what I want to see in order to understand that application or the environment better. Traffic over specific ports, traffic using specific applications like curl within the environment, or traffic related to the labels or tags that I've created so I can understand traffic in a specific environment, application, branch office, etc. So we have this visibility data. We understand what the e-commerce application is doing. Now we need to actually segment it. That process in a firewall world traditionally means we handwrite the rules into the firewall. Well, with Guardicore's workflows, we want to take all of that manual process out. So when we create policies, we offer you templates and wizards that allow you to quickly drive through with a few clicks and implement policy to secure your application. These templates can cover things like common services like Active Directory or DNS. They can cover responses to ransomware and breaches within the environment. Or in this scenario, we're going to use a template for a type of secure segmentation, in this case, ring fencing an application. There's also templates for environment segmentation, PCI policies, as well as application tiers, which is true microsegmentation. So in this case, the requirement is for us to ring fence the e-commerce application. So I click on that tile. I now select the e-com application. I'm going to do it inside of the production environment. There may also be a development version of this application, but I'm only securing the production version. And I'm going to include process level rules. Now, when I click next, Centra is going to do two things now. It's going to recommend the appropriate rule set for you here on the left, and it's going to give you a visual representation of the e-com application here on the right. So you can compare the written rules with the visual representation of the application. In a normal firewall world, I would collect all this data and I would handwrite these rules. We actually want that process to be the inverse. We want to recommend to you what those rules should look like, so it's easy for you to understand them and make changes before you implement the policy. So I can see here, the rules are written to include your source, your destination, your port, and your protocol. You can also have rules that include process level controls and user controls. So let's say for the laptop's environment, my end users, only e-com users should connect to this application. I'm going to go ahead and change this criteria because I've only drafted the policy at this point and say my e-com users can connect. And here now only using Chrome. So we're being extremely restrictive at this point and saying that only users who are part of the e-com security group in Active Directory can use Chrome to access the e-com application. Maybe we also want to add a new port here as we draft these rules. When you scroll down to the bottom of the list, you'll notice that we always start with rules in this alert mode. So as part of that process that bank went through to draft policy, put it in place, and move to enforcement within 2 weeks, at about the 1 week point, they pushed rules in alert mode. This gave them the opportunity to apply the policy that was being recommended and triage the rules and tune the policy based on the violations that they were receiving. Once they were confident that the rules that were in place were accurate, we just moved these alert rules to block. So we have a nice process of taking you from drafting a policy set, going into this alerting or monitoring mode, and then moving into enforcement where policy actually gets applied. We publish our changes like any other firewall system would, so everything is audited and tracked in the backend, so you can review any changes a user or an automation system makes to the policy. And then we're off and running from that point. Now, we've segmented the application, policy is in place, but the next thing we have to do is be able to detect and respond to those violations as they're coming in, because it's natural that there will be violations to every security policy we implement. This is where we look at the incident data that comes in. Now, these incidents can be written to your SIM solution for a NOC or a SOC to respond and triage the alerts. But here's the level of information you get out of Guardicore. We can easily see that the connection was blocked by the source machine. So on the Windows jump box, the user Doug B was using Chrome trying to connect to the front end of the e-commerce application. Doug does not have access to the e-commerce application. He's not a e-commerce user. There's no reason for him to connect to it. So this connection was blocked. You can see a visual representation here of that connection with all of the data. So you can understand that it was Chrome creating a connection, as well as other connections that were created at a similar time. So maybe Doug is doing something malicious or Doug is a bad actor in the network. We want to correlate this data together so you can really understand what's going on within the environment around the same time as this incident as well. But you can clearly see what's going on and what the violation was that actually occurred. This way you can appropriately triage it and your NOC and SOC can take action on it. All right, that is it for the demonstration here today. I want to jump back in, and I think I'm going to check for a few questions here. All right, so we got a couple minutes to address these questions. Let's see, there are 2 of them here. First one, what if my PCI applications include servers running legacy operating systems? Really good question. So Guardicore supports legacy operating systems. We're an agent-based approach, being a software deployment, and we are actually the firewall in this scenario. So everything you saw here was the Guardicore agent collecting that visibility data and enforcing policy using our host-based firewall. That gives us the ability to also offer support for legacy operating systems, things like Windows 2003, Windows XP, Windows 2008, even on Linux and Unix operating systems as well. We have support for legacy OSs. Okay, time for one last question here. We will go with, can you use the tags our Cloud Ops team uses in AWS for the groupings in Guardicore? The answer to that is yes. So that map view that I showed you where everything was organized by environment and application, and then the role the server takes, those tags, those labels as we call them, can come from AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, VMware, for example, where you've already invested the time to create those tags. We can also use metadata from CMDBs such as ServiceNow or tools like Infoblox, where you've invested time and energy to create that metadata in those tags. We can orchestrate that, pull that into the Guardicore platform so you don't need to recreate that information within our user interface. It just makes it a more sustainable approach for you. So you can absolutely leverage those tags that your Cloud Ops team has used in AWS. All right, I think that is about time here and all we have left for the demo today. So if this sounds interesting to you, we'd love to set up a more personalized discussion and talk more about your concerns and your priorities and really understand where we can help you achieve compliance, whether that's with PCI, SWIFT, or a different compliance regulation, you name it. If it requires you to isolate or segment an environment or an application, Guardicore can help you there. If you'd like to see that more personalized demo, you can go right to our website, guardicore.com, and request a demo right off the homepage. Thank you very much for the time today. Again, I'm Garrett Weber with Guardicore. Really appreciate you attending this 20-minute Tuesday, and have a great day.